My daughter-in-law looked me in the eye with a chilling smile. She said, "Oh, we already got married yesterday. We only invited special people." I had paid their rent for 3 years. I bought every piece of furniture in their house, and I was not a special person. What I did next changed everything. When I picked up the phone, I expected to hear the wedding date. My son Max was finally getting married to Lena. For weeks, my mind had been a whirlwind of happy plans. I had pictured the ceremony. I had imagined the joy on their faces. I held the phone to my ear, my heart light with anticipation. I asked him, "Max, honey, when is the big day?" There was a short pause. Then I heard Lena's voice, clear and sharp, coming through the receiver. She was right beside him. She said, "Oh, we already got married yesterday." The words didn't make sense at first. They floated in the air for a moment. Then they landed, hitting me like a bucket of ice water. Lena's voice continued, laced with a sweetness that felt like poison. "We only invited special people." Special people. The phrase echoed in my quiet living room. It bounced off the walls and settled deep inside my chest, cold and heavy. I looked around the room. I saw the sofa they were sitting on. I had bought it for them. The coffee table, the lamp in the corner, the rug beneath their feet. I had paid for it all. For 3 years, I had paid their monthly rent of $500. I had filled their refrigerator when they called to say they had no food. I had given them the money from my late husband's savings, the money he had left for me so that I could live my last years in peace. And I was not a special person. I stood there frozen. The phone in my hand felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. On the other end of the line, I could hear their faint murmurs. My son, my only child, was avoiding my gaze even through the phone. I could picture him perfectly. He would be looking down at his hands, unable to face me. Lena, however, would be comfortable. She would be lounging on the sofa I had bought, wearing the smile of a cat that had just eaten the canary. In my closet, a pale pink dress hung, still wrapped in plastic. I had spent $200 on it. I had bought new shoes to match. I had spent hours imagining how nice I would look in Max's wedding photos. Photos that would never be taken. Pictures in which I would never appear. The illusion shattered into a million tiny pieces. All the planning, all the excitement, all the love I had poured into this event. It was all for nothing. I had set aside $1,000 as a wedding gift. I had called my sister Diana in Chicago to share the happy news. I had cleaned my house from top to bottom, hoping they would celebrate with me. All of it collapsed in that single cruel moment. Max finally spoke. His voice was flat and rehearsed. "Mom, it was an intimate thing. Very small. Just the two of us and the witnesses." But I knew he was lying. I had already seen the pictures on social media. My fingers had trembled as I scrolled through them just an hour before my call. I saw Lena's parents, beaming with pride, posing next to the bride and groom. I saw her brothers and sisters toasting with champagne glasses. I saw her in a beautiful white dress, a dress I had helped pay for with the $800 I had given her last month for personal expenses. I saw a whole celebration, a party filled with people who were apparently more special than the mother who had given him life. The humiliation was a physical ache in my chest. I felt small and foolish. For years, I had been their silent provider, the emergency contact, the bank that never closed. I was the one they called when the car broke down, when the rent was due, when a medical bill arrived. I had always answered. I had always solved their problems. I thought my generosity was a form of love. Now I saw it for what it was. It was an admission ticket, a ticket to a show I wasn't even allowed to watch. A week passed, 7 days. In that time I heard nothing from my son. Not a text, not a call, not a word of apology. The silence was its own kind of message. It told me they felt no remorse. They felt entitled to their cruelty. I moved through my days in a fog of hurt. The beautiful pink dress in my closet became a symbol of my foolishness. I took it down and put it in a box in the attic, out of sight but not out of mind. Then, exactly 7 days after the humiliation, my phone rang. The screen lit up with Lena's name. My first instinct was to ignore it, but a cold curiosity took hold of me. What could she possibly want now? I answered, but I said nothing. Her voice came through the line, no longer confident and sharp. Now it was thin and desperate. "Renata, the rent is overdue. The landlord is pressuring us." She took a shaky breath. "He says if we don't pay this week, he will kick us out. You forgot to make the transfer." Her voice trembled as if the world were ending. For them, maybe it was. I was silent for a few seconds. My mind flashed through all the times I had rushed to the bank to make that transfer. All the times I had canceled my own plans to ensure they had a roof over their heads. All the times I had eaten simple meals so I could afford to give them money for their desires. They had excluded me from the most important day of their lives. Now they had the nerve to call me as if nothing had happened. "Lena," I said. My voice was calm. The calmness surprised even me. "Didn't I tell you? I only help special people. The silence on the other end of the line was so deep I could hear my own heart beating. It was a steady, strong rhythm. For the first time in years, it was not my voice that was trembling. It was hers. Renata. I don't understand, she stammered. We were always special to you. You're like a second mom to me. Lies. All lies. Wrapped in that sweet voice she only used when she needed something. It was the same voice she had used to ask for money for the wedding dress, for the honeymoon I now knew about, for the rings I had helped finance, without ever seeing the ceremony where they were exchanged. For so many years I had walked on eggshells around them. I weighed every word, every gesture, every gift. I was hoping to earn a crumb of affection from my own son. I was the perfect mother, the obliging mother-in-law, the silent provider who never protested. I made myself invisible so they would be comfortable. But that one phrase, only special people, had awakened something inside me, something that had been asleep for far too long. I had done a rough calculation in my head during that painful week. How much money had I really spent on them in those 3 years? Between rent, food, gifts, emergencies, and whims, it was over $20,000. I had taken $20,000 from my retirement fund, from the money my late husband had left me. All of it was gone. And for what? To be treated like a stranger on my own son's wedding day. That night, after I hung up the phone on Lena, I sat on my bed and I cried. But they were not tears of sadness. There were tears of anger, tears of frustration that had been building for years. I cried for all the times they made me feel that my love was a burden. I cried for the times my presence was an inconvenience. I cried because they made me believe my money was the only thing I had to offer. I cried for the foolish mother I had been. I cried for the woman who had lost herself while trying to be indispensable to people who considered her disposable. When I woke up the next morning, the world felt different. Something inside me had shifted. The pain of betrayal was still there, but it was joined by something more profound, something colder. I stood up and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I saw the same tired eyes, the same wrinkles that told stories of a life spent giving. But there was something new in my gaze, a hardness I didn't recognize, a determination that had been buried under years of quiet compliance. Today was a new day, and I was a new woman. I went to the kitchen and made coffee. I had done this every morning for 40 years. It was a ritual, but this time something was different. I did not think about calling Max to ask how he had slept. I did not check my phone waiting for an apology that would never come. For the first time in a very long time, my first thought of the day was about myself. I sat at my kitchen table. This was the same table where I had planned their surprises, the same table where I had counted out bills for their expenses, the same table where I had cried silently over their indifference. Now this table would be a witness to my rebirth. I took out my checkbook. I pulled out my bank statements from the last 3 years. I wanted to see the numbers. I wanted to see the whole ugly truth of my own foolishness laid out in black and white. Monthly rent of $500. Multiplied by 36 months. That was $18,000. Food and supplies about $200 a month. That was another $7,200. Birthday gifts, Christmas gifts, anniversary gifts. At least $3,000. Lena's medical emergencies, which always seemed to happen right before a holiday. $800. The loan for their car that they never paid back. $2,500. The air conditioner repair in their apartment. $600. The living room furniture I was still paying for. $1,200. I added up the numbers. My hand was steady. The total was $33,400. That was the exact price of my generosity. $33,400. Money I had scraped from my husband's inheritance, cash from my pension, money I had saved penny by penny over decades of honest work. All of it was thrown away. It's a waste to keep 2 healthy adults comfortable. 2 adults who could not even pretend to respect me. My phone rang. The screen showed Max's name. Usually my heart would have leaped. I would have run to answer, hoping for an apology, hoping he would say it was all a misunderstanding. This time I let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. Then it went silent. I continued to sip my coffee. I felt nothing. 10 minutes later it rang again. This time it was Lena. I let her call go to voicemail too. A text message from Max appeared. * Mom, please answer. We need to talk. *. I deleted the message without replying. At 2 o'clock in the afternoon, I decided to go for a walk. I had not done that in months, not just for the pleasure of it. My walks always had a purpose. I went to the bank for their transfers. I went to the supermarket to buy groceries. I went to the pharmacy to pick up Lena's medications. Today I walked just because I wanted to. I walked past the park where I used to take Max as a child. I remembered that sweet little boy. He would hug me tight and tell me I was the best mom in the world. When did he change? When did he become this man who treated me like an ATM with feelings? When did I start to believe I had to buy my own son's affection? The questions hung in the air, but I didn't need the answers anymore. The past was the past. I found myself standing in front of my bank, the place where I had so often enabled their behavior. The branch manager, Mr. Klein, saw me through the glass. He waved. I had known him for years. He had processed every one of my transfers to Max and Lena. He had watched my savings account drain month after month to fill theirs. I walked inside and went directly to his office. "Mr. Klein," I said, "I need to cancel all of my automatic transfers." He looked at me surprised. For 3 years, those transfers had been as regular as the sunrise. "Are you sure, Mrs. Richter? Did something happen?" His concern was genuine. It was more authentic than any interest Max had shown in me in months. "What happened, Mr. Klein?" I replied, "is that I have finally opened my eyes. I want to cancel everything, and I also want information on how to protect my accounts. I don't want anyone else to have access to my money." While Mr. Klein processed the cancellations, my phone vibrated in my purse. Over and over. Max, Lena. Max again. It was like they had a sixth sense. They could feel their source of income being cut off. I reached into my purse and turned the phone off completely. "Mrs. Richter," Mr. Klein said as he handed me the completed paperwork, "I apologize if I'm overstepping, but in all these years, I have seen you be very generous with your family. I just hope you are not being pressured to make these changes." His words touched me deeply. This man who barely knew me showed more care for my well-being than my own son. "I'm not being pressured, Mr. Klein," I said. "On the contrary, I have finally stopped pressuring myself." When I left the bank, I felt strangely light. An enormous burden had been lifted from my shoulders. For the first time in years, my money was entirely mine. I had no financial obligations to people who saw me as a resource instead of a person. When I arrived home, I saw 3 cars parked in front of my house. Max's car, Lena's car, and a third one I didn't recognize. I could see movement inside my home through the living room window. My blood ran cold. They had keys. I had given them keys to my house. I gave them keys because I trusted them, because I foolishly thought they would one day take care of me just as I had taken care of them. I took a deep breath. I gripped my purse tightly. It was time for the first real confrontation of my new life. I opened my front door and stepped into a scene I will never forget. Max was sitting on my sofa, his head buried in his hands. Lena was pacing back and forth like a caged animal. An older man in a gray suit was going through a stack of papers on my dining table. "My papers. My personal documents. What is happening here?" I asked. My voice was louder and stronger than I expected. All 3 of them turned to look at me as if I were the intruder. Lena was the first to speak. Her voice had that desperate, urgent tone I now recognize. "Renata, thank God you're here. We need to talk. Mr. Fisher is from the law firm we consulted about your situation." "My situation?" The question came out with a surprising calm. "I'm doing perfectly fine." Max finally lifted his head. He looked at me with those eyes that once belonged to an innocent child. Now they only reflect financial panic. "Mom, we went to the bank. They told us you canceled all the transfers. Mr. Klein said you also blocked our access to your accounts. We don't understand why you did that." Mr. Fisher, the man in the gray suit, approached me with his hand outstretched. He had a smile that didn't inspire any confidence. "Mrs. Richter, I am Dr. Fisher, a family law attorney. Your children are concerned about your mental well-being. They've asked me to assess the situation." I did not shake his hand. Instead, I walked straight to my dining table. I gathered up all the documents he had been reviewing without my permission. "These are my private papers," I said, my voice sharp. "You have no right to look at them." "Mom," Max interjected. He used a condescending tone that he had perfected over the years. "We're worried about you. Your behavior has been bizarre lately. First, you cut off our financial support without explanation. Then you don't answer our calls. We think you might need professional help." Lena came closer. She tried to take my hand with a fake tenderness she reserved for moments of manipulation. "Renata, honey, we know you're under a lot of stress. Maybe the loneliness is affecting you more than you think. At your age, episodes of confusion are normal." Confusion. The word echoed in my head like an alarm bell. Now I understand. They had brought a lawyer. This wasn't about helping me. This was about declaring me mentally incompetent. It was about taking control of my finances. The same woman who had told me I wasn't special enough for her wedding was now treating me like a senile older woman. "I am not confused," I said. My voice was firm. It silenced the entire room. "I am clearer than I have been in years. And you are all going to leave my house right now." Mr. Fisher spoke up, using that smooth, professional voice lawyers use to sound reasonable. "Mrs. Richter, I understand you feel overwhelmed, but your children have a right to intervene if they believe your ability to make financial decisions is impaired. They have documented several concerning behaviors. Concerning behaviors? A laugh escaped my throat. It was a harsh, bitter sound. Like what? Deciding that my money belongs to me? Deciding to no longer finance the lives of two adults who treat me like trash. Lena jumped as if I had slapped her. We never treated you badly. You're part of our family. Everything you have will belong to us one day anyway. We are just speeding up the process. There was the naked, unvarnished truth. In their minds, I was already dead. They were collecting their inheritance in advance. It did not matter if I had years or days left to live. To them, I was just an ATM that had become problematic. Out, I said, pointing to the door. All three of you, get out of my house. Max stood up. He had that angry, childlike look on his face that he always got when he didn't get his way. Mom, we can't just leave. We have obligations. The rent, the car payments, the credit card you co-signed for. You can't just cut us off from one day to the next. I can't. My voice rose for the first time. Who says I can't? For years, I have paid rent that wasn't even in my name. I filled a refrigerator in a house where I was not welcome. I financed a life that clearly had no place for me. Mr. Fisher took a folder from his briefcase. He placed it on my table. Mrs. Richter, we have prepared some documents that could facilitate this transition. A power of attorney. It would allow Max and Lena to manage your finances more efficiently. This would just be temporary until you feel better. I took the folder. Without opening it, I walked to the kitchen and threw it directly into the trash can. The only transition that is going to happen here, I said, is yours to the front door. Lena started to cry, but they were tears of frustration, not sadness. Tears of pure, contained rage. You can't do this to us, Renata. We were counting on you. We made plans based on your support. We bought things. We took on financial obligations because we knew we could count on you. Obligations based on my money, I replied. Not on my well-being, not on my happiness, not on my company, just on my money. And now that I have decided my money is better used in my own life, I am suddenly a confused old woman who needs a legal guardian. Max tried to approach me, but I took a step back. He was no longer my little boy. He was a 35-year-old man who saw his mother as an obstacle to a comfortable life financed by others. Mom, we made mistakes, he said. His voice was supposed to sound remorseful. The wedding, it was a misunderstanding. Lena was nervous. I was under pressure. We can fix this if you just become reasonable again. Reasonable. The word tasted like poison in my mouth. Reasonable means continuing to pay for your life while you treat me like a stranger. It means pretending it doesn't hurt to be excluded from the most important day of my only son's life. Mr. Fisher packed up his papers. He had the efficiency of someone accustomed to having his proposals rejected. Mrs. Richter, this is not over. Your family has legal options. If you are indeed making irrational decisions due to mental health problems, a judge can determine that you need guardianship. His words were a blow. I realized this was not just a manipulative family visit. This was a real legal threat. They wanted to have me declared incompetent to manage my own affairs. They tried to take everything. I looked directly into Mr. Fisher's eyes. A cold, hard anger was replacing my fear. I suggest you conduct your research thoroughly before you threaten a 71-year-old woman. A woman who has impeccably handled her finances for the past 40 years. A woman who has raised her son by herself after her husband passed. A woman who has worked commendably until her retirement. A woman who was financially footing the bills for two fully able adults until last week. Lena stopped crying. She stared at me mercilessly, which finally revealed the truth behind her mask. Renata, it will not stay this way. We have rights, and we have lawyers. Perfect, I replied. Your tantrums have burnt a hole in my pocket. My money is no longer available for you. So hire any lawyer you want. The three of them walked to the door. They had a hurt dignity of people who aren't used to being told no. Before he left, Max turned to me one last time. Mom, this is not going to end well for you. You're going to end up all alone and with no one to take care of you when you need it. I looked at my son, the boy I had loved so dearly, the man he had become. I felt deep sadness, but my voice was clear as a bell. Max, I'm already alone. The difference is that now it is on my own accord, not out of your neglect. I closed the door behind them. I leaned against it, my heart pounding. The house was filled with a strange, beautiful silence I hadn't heard in years. It was the silence of freedom. That night I couldn't sleep. It wasn't from sadness or regret. It was from adrenaline. I had reclaimed control of my life. As I lay in bed awake, I planned my moves like a general about to go to war. If Max and Lena wanted a fight, I would give them a war. But a war of intelligence, not of passion, it would be. At 6 o'clock in the morning I was dressed and ready. I first stopped by Mr. Weber's office. I knew Mr. Weber as an attorney who had handled my husband's will years ago. Mr. Weber maintained a flawless reputation, unlike Mr. Fisher. He specialized in protecting the rights of older people. I sat in his office and told him everything: the secret wedding, the visit with the lawyer, the threat of a guardianship lawsuit. He listened patiently, taking notes. "Mrs. Richter," he told me when I finished, "don't fret if, throughout the previous week, your young ones attempted to break into your house without your permission and reviewed your private documents, including wills and trusts. This is more frequent than you may believe, and it is a federal offense known as elder financial abuse." His words both calmed and worried me. They calmed me because they confirmed I wasn't crazy. What had happened was truly abusive. They had me more worried than I thought, which was a serious situation. Mr. Weber continued, "We need to document everything. We will also modify your will to safeguard your assets against manipulative attempts in the future of every transfer, every gift, and every time they pressure you for money." We went through my financial records for 3 hours next. Mr. Weber let out a whistle upon seeing the final total. 3 years and $33,400. "Oh no," he said. "With this money, Mrs. Richter, you could have lived a comfortable life. You would have traveled and made the most of your retirement. Instead, you entirely financed the life of 2 adults who didn't even have the respect to invite you to their wedding." After leaving Mr. Weber's office, I had the whole plan. First, I would change all the locks on my house. Second, I would secure myself from any more surprise visits by installing a security system with cameras. Next, I would set up a new bank account at an alternative bank where they had no contact. Lastly, I would begin to live the life I had postponed for so long. My next stop was the hardware store. Mr. Summer, the owner, has known me for years. I was always in his shop, picking things to fix Max and Lena's place. "What can I do for you today, Mrs. Richter?" he asked with a smile. "Another emergency with your son?" "No, Mr. Summer," I said. "I want to change all the locks of my own house this time, and I want these to be top quality as well." He looked surprised, but he asked no questions. While I was selecting the new locks, his son Ethan came along. Ethan installed security systems. It felt like Providence in action. "Let's go with this one too, on the more expensive side." "Ethan," I told him, "I have to install surveillance also. The complete system. Price doesn't matter." I got a call from an unknown number while they were preparing everything for the installation the next day. I knew it was them. I answered. "Rod, it's Lena. Don't hang up. We need to talk like grown-ups." "Speak," I said dryly. "I know that you are upset and furious that there wasn't a wedding. It was a mistake. Max and I spoke about it. We want to make it up to you. We can have an exclusive dinner at your place to celebrate our wedding. You can prepare together with us as you used to do." The manipulation was so blatant I almost laughed. "Lena," I said, "how much do you owe in rent?" I realized I had negatively impacted the person on the phone when they stopped speaking. "It's been 2 months now. Total is $1,000, she confessed. "But I'm not just calling for that, Renata. We really miss you in our lives." "Do you miss me or do you miss my money?" I directly asked. She replied, "Both," with surprising honesty. "Renata, I don't want to get all sentimental, but we do need your help financially. More so, we love you." "If I am so important," I told him, "why wasn't it important enough to be at your wedding? Why am I not important enough for you to pick up the phone and call me unless it is to ask for money? When was the last time you called me just to ask how I was?" Another silence. We both knew the answer. "Never. Lena, I will only say this once. For 3 years, you have treated me like an ATM with feelings. You used me. You ignored me. You embarrassed me. And then you insulted me in the most horrible way possible. Now that the money is running out, you suddenly realize you love me. Renata, please." I cut her off. "You're sad? Well, guess what? You made your choice when you decided I am not special enough for your wedding. Now I am making mine." I hung up the phone and turned it off completely. I didn't want anything else to interrupt my day of freedom. That afternoon I went to the beauty salon. I hadn't been in over a year. I always canceled my appointments at the last minute. Either Max or Lena would call me for something urgent, or the money I always kept aside for myself would become an emergency fund for them. It was my favorite hairstylist, Cynthia, who called out Mrs. Richter. "I thought you'd forgotten us. What a surprise." "I didn't forget about you, Cynthia," I said as I sat down on the chair. "I just forgot that I deserve some pampering too." I treated myself to the complete package. Cut, color, manicure, pedicure. I bought myself something for the first time in years without any guilt. While Cynthia was doing my hair, she told me all about her life, children, and dreams. It was refreshing. I had a conversation that did not revolve around Max and Lena's incessant demands. When she was done, she said, "You look lovely, Mrs. Richter. Your freedom is what really stands out. Do you have anything good to report? Yes, Cynthia, I smiled at my reflection. I can finally say no now. The afternoon I came back home, there was an unrecognizable car parked in front of my house. My heart raced for a moment. Max and Lena may have returned with backup. However, as I got closer, I noticed an older woman sitting on the porch steps. Is this Mrs. Richter? She inquired as I exited my vehicle. Yes, I'm that guy. Can I help you? I'm Eleanor Brooks. I'm your neighbor. We have lived next to each other for quite some time, but we never spoke. So I wanted to introduce myself. I started hearing thunderous voices from your house yesterday. I got worried. Is everything okay? Her sincere concern touched me deeply. I am a stranger here, but you care for my well-being more than my son does. Mrs. Brooks, come in, I said. I'll prepare you a cup of coffee, but first I'm going to tell you a story. While the coffee brewed, I told her everything. The secret wedding, the humiliation, the visit with the lawyer, the threats. Eleanor responded by nodding her head. When I finished my story, her eyes were filled with tears. Mrs. Richter, she said softly, you did the right thing as I went through it for 5 years with my daughter. I thought no matter what age she was, it was my duty to finance her adult life. I thought she wouldn't love me if I didn't give her money. I inquired, leaning forward. What happened? I shut off the money. I realized she only called when she needed something. At first it was terrible. She threatened me. She emotionally blackmailed me. She tried to make me feel guilty. But my daughter called after 6 months to say sorry. Now we have a proper relationship, one based on love, not money. Her words gave me hope. They confirmed that I had made the right decision. Will Max and Lena realize it one day? I don't really know myself, was her reply. Mrs. Richter, that is no longer your concern. Your concern now is to live your own life. That night marked the first time in 3 years I went to bed not worrying. I didn't stress about whether they had money for rent, food, or anything else they wanted. I went to bed thinking about myself, about my plans, about my future, and I slept better than I had in years. The next day, Ethan and Mr. Summer arrived at 8 o'clock. The locks were changed and a security system was installed. My phone kept ringing from various unknown numbers while they worked. Lena was still trying to contact me from different phones, but I had mastered a new kind of skill, completely ignoring calls that didn't suit me. Mrs. Richter, Ethan said while installing the last camera, with this system, you will have complete peace of mind, seeing on your phone who is coming to your house when you are not here. And if anyone breaks in uninvited, an alert is automatically sent to the police. The irony was not lost on me. My own son prompted me to install a security mechanism to safeguard myself, but it didn't hurt as much as it used to. It was simply a practical measure, a necessary step to maintain my newfound peace. I'm not doing the same work as them. Instead, I'm doing something I did years ago. I called my sister Diana in Chicago. We had lost touch. Whenever we spoke, I found myself endlessly rambling about Max and Lena. I would tell her how much money I spent on them, how lucky I was to be able to help them, and how proud I was of their success. Now it's dawned on me that our regular conversations were economic reports. Renata, Diana answered, surprised. Hey sister, how are you? We have not spoken in months. I'm fine, Diana. I'm better than fine. I'm calling because I've come to my senses at last. I told her the whole story from the beginning. The secret wedding, the humiliation, the visit with the lawyer, my decision to cut them off. Diana listened in silence. When I was finished, her answer startled me. Renata, sister, it was high time. We spoke, my heart broke every time. You were just bragging about the money you gave them as if it was a count of $1 of love. I wanted to tell you something, but I did not know how. What is it that you want to tell me? I never heard Max talk about you or show any affection towards you at a family gathering. When he went on his trips, it was always, my mom did this for me. My mom brought me that. I didn't see any, I miss my mom, or I love my mom. You were like a service provider to him. Her words hurt, but it was a necessary pain, like a doctor cleaning an infected wound. It hurts, but it is part of the healing, Diana said. What else did I notice? Lena was always future tense about you. That ricocheted within me. When Renata is no longer there, we can knock her house through a remodel, they would say. Or, when we get the inheritance, we'll put it into the business. This revelation hit me like another bucket of ice water. They didn't just see me as an ATM. They saw me as a temporary obstacle, an obstacle between them and my money. I was trying to make them happy in the present while they were making plans for the future without me. After talking with Diana, I sat in my kitchen processing everything. The weight of her words settled on me. Years of marriage to a man who had truly loved me. I have been raising my son alone for 35 years after my husband's death, and 3 years of financing the lives of 2 adults who saw me as an obstacle. It was a bitter pill to swallow. The new doorbell chimed. On the security camera monitor, I saw Eleanor holding a mug. I opened the door and she handed me a freshly brewed coffee. "I thought you might need some company after everything you told me yesterday," she said with that sincere smile I had already come to appreciate. We sat in my living room and Eleanor told me more details about her own experience with her daughter. "She said the same things to me that Lena says to you," Eleanor recalled. "You're like a second mom to me. We're special to you. Everything will be ours one day anyway." Those are rehearsed phrases, Mrs. Richter. They learned them from the Emotional Manipulation Handbook. "Do you think such a handbook exists?" I asked, half joking. "Not officially," she laughed, "but it seems they all read from the same book. Chapter 1 is Make her feel indispensable. Chapter 2 is Create constant financial emergencies. Chapter 3 is When she resists, question her mental health." We both laughed, but it was a bitter laugh. It was both funny and tragic to recognize such predictable patterns in our own children's behavior. "Did you ever feel guilty for cutting off the money?" I asked her. "Every single day for the first 3 months," she answered honestly. "But then I started to see the results. My daughter had to get a second job. Her husband stopped playing golf every weekend and started looking for extra work. They learned to live within their means. And more importantly, they learned that I was a person, not a resource." That afternoon, I decided to do something I had postponed for years. I visited my husband's grave. I had always made excuses not to go. Max or Lena needed something urgent, or the taxi fare would be better spent on one of their emergencies. The cemetery was quiet and beautiful. Robert's grave looked a bit neglected. I hadn't been there to clean it in months. I sat on the grass next to his headstone and talked to him as if he were there. "Robert, my love, I think I lost myself for a while. After you left, I put all my energy into Max. I wanted to be the best mother in the world, to make up for him growing up without a father. But I think in the process I forgot to be myself." The wind blew gently and for a moment I felt like he was listening. "Our son has become someone I don't recognize. Or maybe he was always like this and I just didn't want to see it." His wife, "Well, you know how she is. The money you left for me, the money for me to live peacefully, I spent it taking care of them. But not anymore, my love. I have learned." I cleaned his grave. I replaced the withered flowers with fresh ones. I stayed there for another hour, simply enjoying the peace. For the first time in years, I was not in a hurry to get home to solve a crisis for Max and Lena. When I arrived home, 3 cars were parked in front of my door again. My heart raced, but this time I was prepared. The cameras showed me it was Max, Lena, and 2 other people I didn't recognize. They all seemed agitated, talking to each other and pointing at my house. I did not get out of the car. Instead, I called my lawyer, Mr. Weber. "Mr. Weber, they are at my house again. This time they've brought more people. What should I do?" "Don't get out of the car, Mrs. Richter. I'll be there right away. And I'm calling the police. After our conversation yesterday, I requested a temporary restraining order. They are not allowed to be on your property." Minutes later, Mr. Weber's car pulled up, followed by 2 police patrol cars. I watched from my car as the officers talked to Max and Lena. I saw my son gesticulating angrily. I saw Lena crying again, but this time her tears did not move me. One of the officers approached my car. "Ma'am, you can get out safely now. Your visitors are going to leave immediately." As I got out of the car, Max shouted at me from the street. "Mom, this is ridiculous. We're your family. You can't call the police on your own son." "Max," I replied, my voice steady and calm. "Family doesn't threaten lawsuits for mental incompetence. Family doesn't break into people's homes without permission. Family doesn't treat their mothers like ATMs." Lena screamed from across the street. "You're going to pay us everything you owe us. We have bills you co-signed for. You can't just abandon us like this." Mr. Weber interjected, stepping between us. "Mrs. Schuster, any future communication must be through my office, and I suggest you consult with an attorney before making collection threats. My client has full documentation of all the payments she voluntarily made for 3 years." I watched them drive away in their cars, defeated but not giving up. I knew this wasn't over, but for the first time in this whole situation I felt confident. I had professional help. I had emotional support from Eleanor. And most importantly, I had the mental clarity to know what was right and what was wrong. That night, Eleanor invited me to her house for dinner. I met her daughter, who was visiting. I was able to see with my own eyes what a healthy family relationship looked like. They spoke respectfully to each other. They asked sincerely about each other's lives. They laughed together. The daughter didn't ask for money once the entire evening. "I wanted that with Max too," I confessed to Eleanor after her daughter had left. "And maybe you'll get it one day," she replied. "But first he has to learn that you are a person who deserves respect." not just a source of income. For the first time in weeks, I went to bed feeling hopeful about the future. The next few days were strangely peaceful. The new security cameras became my silent sentinels. They showed me that Max and Lena were driving past my house several times a day. Sometimes they moved slowly. Sometimes they parked for a few minutes, never getting out. It was as if they were studying my routine, looking for the perfect moment for their next move. Mr. Weber had advised me to document every one of these visits. I kept a detailed log with the date and time of each drive-by. Their persistence will work in our favor, he had said. Every time they show up after we've told them not to approach, it strengthens our case for a permanent restraining order. On Friday morning, I was calmly having breakfast when the doorbell rang. The cameras showed me a very well-dressed young woman holding a folder and wearing a professional smile. I didn't recognize her, but something about her posture told me this was not a social visit. "Good morning, Mrs. Renata Richter," she said as I opened the door. "Yes, I am a social investigator from the Office of Senior Services. We have received a report that you may be in an at-risk situation. We need to conduct a wellness check." My blood ran cold. Max and Lena had escalated the situation. It was no longer just threats from private lawyers. Now they had involved the government. "Can I see your ID?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "Of course." She showed me an official ID that looked genuine. "I am social worker Mrs. Schmidt. May I come in and talk with you?" I let her in. I knew that a refusal would look worse for my case. Mrs. Schmidt sat down in my living room and took a form out of her folder. "Mrs. Richter, we have received reports that you have shown significant changes in your financial behavior, that you have cut off communication with your family, and that you have shown signs of paranoia by installing unnecessary security systems. We were also told that you have refused medical and legal help from your loved ones." Every word had been carefully chosen. They were designed to make me sound like a mentally disturbed older woman. I recognized Lena's manipulative touch in the wording. She had always been skilled at twisting words to get what she wanted. "Miss Schmidt," I said with all the dignity I could muster, "I would like to call my lawyer before I answer any of your questions." "Ma'am, this is not a legal interrogation. It's a wellness check. If you have nothing to hide, it should not be a problem to speak with me." The phrase, "if you have nothing to hide," infuriated me. It was the same twisted logic abusers used to justify their invasions of privacy. "Miss," I said firmly, "I am calling my lawyer. You can wait here or come back another day, but I will not answer any questions without legal representation present." I called Mr. Weber. He was there within 20 minutes. When he walked in and saw the social worker, his expression hardened. "Miss Schmidt," he said after checking her ID, "I hope you have a court order to be here. My client is under my legal representation. Any unauthorized investigation constitutes harassment." "Sir," Mrs. Schmidt replied, her confidence wavering, "we have reports from concerned family members about the lady's well-being. It is our duty to investigate." "What family?" Mr. Weber asked dryly. "The same family that tried to get her to sign a power of attorney without representation? The same family that broke into her house without permission and checked her private documents? The same family that excluded her from important events while living off her money?" Mr. Weber took a folder from his briefcase and placed it on the table. "Here I have complete documentation of the financial and emotional abuse my client has suffered. $33,400 withdrawn from her accounts in 3 years. Systematic social exclusion and emotional blackmail. If someone needs to be investigated here, it is not my client." Mrs. Schmidt reviewed the documents with growing discomfort. It was obvious that the story she had been told did not match the reality before her. "Mrs. Richter," she said finally, looking at me, "can you explain to me why you so abruptly stopped financial support for your son?" "Because I finally discovered they were using me," I replied simply. "Because I realized that to them I wasn't a mother. I was a bank account. Because I was tired of financing the lives of people who saw me as an obstacle." "But don't you feel it's your responsibility to help your family?" The question outraged me. "Miss Schmidt, my responsibility as a mother was to raise my son until he was 18, to educate him and give him the tools to be an independent adult. My son is 35 years old. He is married and perfectly capable of supporting himself. Financing his adult life is not my responsibility. It is my choice, and I have chosen not to do so anymore." Mr. Weber interjected. "Miss Schmidt, would you consider it normal for a 35-year-old adult to be unable to pay his own rent without the help of his 71-year-old mother?" Mrs. Schmidt did not answer right away. I could see her re-evaluating the entire situation in her mind. "Mrs. Richter," she asked after a moment, "do you manage your own finances completely?" "Yes. I can show you my bank statements, my investments, my tax payments. Everything is current and in order." "Do you live independently?" As you can see, keep my house clean. I take care of myself physically. I drive my own car. I have healthy social relationships with my neighbors. Do you take any medication? Just vitamins and an occasional aspirin. I don't have any medical conditions that require medication, Mr. Weber added. My client has just undergone extensive medical exams as part of our legal process. She is in perfect mental and physical condition. Mrs. Schmidt closed her folder and sighed. Mrs. Richter, based on this conversation and the documentation I have reviewed, I see no indication that you are at risk or in need of intervention. I will be closing this case. After she left, Mr. Weber and I remained silent for a few minutes. Renata, he said finally, this is going to continue to escalate. Max and Lena are spending money they don't have. They are hiring professionals to try to have you declared incompetent. Does that mean they are desperate? It means exactly that. What else can they do? They can file a lawsuit for incompetence, he said. It's expensive and hard to win, but if they find a sympathetic judge and a psychiatrist willing to testify in their favor, they could get a guardian assigned. The thought terrified me. They could take control of my money after all. They can try, Mr. Weber said, seeing the fear in my eyes. But we have solid evidence that you are completely competent, and that they are motivated by greed, not by genuine concern. That afternoon I called Diana to vent. My voice shook as I told her about the social worker's visit. Sister, she said after hearing my story, do you see how far they are willing to go for money? They are risking family relationships. They are spending money on lawyers and doctors. They are destroying their own reputation. All of this just to get access to your bank account again. Her words made me think. Max and Lena had revealed their true nature entirely. There was no going back now. There was no possibility of a genuine reconciliation. To them, I had never been a mother or a respected mother-in-law. I had always just been money on legs. This revelation, although painful, was also liberating. I no longer had to wonder if I was making the right decision. I no longer had to feel guilty for protecting myself. They had proven beyond any doubt that my emotional and physical well-being was less important to them than my money. That evening, Eleanor came to visit with a surprise. She had invited her friends from the garden club to meet me. Renata, she introduced me. These are my friends Cynthia, who you already know from the salon, Maria, Carmen, and Alfreda. We have all been through similar situations with abusive family members. We spent the evening sharing our stories. Maria had to set boundaries with a brother who constantly asked for money. Carmen had cut off her relationship with a daughter who only visited when she needed something. Alfreda had to change her will after she found out her grandchildren considered her their personal retirement plan. What hurts me the most, I confessed to them, is not losing the money I gave them. It's realizing that I never had the love I thought I had. Renata, Alfreda said with the wisdom of her 80 years, true love cannot be bought or sold. If you had to pay for it, it was never real. Her words were like a balm for my wounded soul. He was right. I had bought attention, not love. I had financed an illusion. You know what I've discovered? I said to my new friends. The loneliness you feel when you are surrounded by people who don't love you is worse than being lonely on your own. At least now, when I am alone, I am in good company. Everyone laughed and we toasted to our newfound wisdom. That night, after my new friends had left, I sat in my garden thinking. The stars seemed to shine brighter than ever. Or I was seeing them with clearer eyes. For the first time in my adult life, I was completely financially independent. I had no obligations to anyone but myself. And instead of scaring me, this reality excited me. I could travel when I wanted. I could remodel my house. I could buy myself nice clothes. I could donate to charities that were important to me. I could invest in my own future instead of financing the present of ungrateful people. Freedom tasted like hope, and for the first time in years I wanted to plan my future. A month passed. I thought I had finally won the war. I settled into a beautiful new routine. I had breakfast and read the newspaper in peace. I tended to my garden. I had lunch with Eleanor or one of my new friends. In the afternoons, I devoted myself to activities I had given up for years. I had started painting again, a passion I had before I became Max and Lena's personal financier. But on a Thursday morning, while I was painting flowers on my new easel, Mr. Weber came to my house. He had a grim expression on his face that made my blood run cold. Renata, we need to talk. Max and Lena have filed a formal lawsuit for mental incompetence in family court. They are requesting to have a legal guardian assigned to you. The words fell on me like stones. I knew it was a possibility, but hearing it out loud made it terrifyingly real. Does that mean they can take control of my money? If a judge determines that you are unable to manage your affairs, yes, he said. He could place Max as your legal guardian. That would give him full control over your finances. I sat down heavily on my sofa. I felt the weight of the most profound betrayal I had ever experienced. My own son was trying to declare me incompetent to steal my money legally. Mr. Weber, what evidence could they possibly have? You yourself have seen that I am completely competent. They have statements from 3 witnesses who claim you have behaved erratically. They also submitted unpaid doctor's bills that you supposedly didn't pay and medications that you supposedly hoarded without taking them. But that's a lie. I don't have any outstanding doctor's bills. I don't hoard medications. I know, Renata. But they have fabricated convincing evidence. They also have a statement from a Dr. Lehman. He states that you refused to cooperate with a psychiatric evaluation, which they interpret as proof of your mental decline. The manipulation was diabolical. They had turned my refusal to undergo an unnecessary exam into proof of a mental illness. They had used my instinct to protect myself from them as proof that I needed their protection. Who are the 3 witnesses? Mr. Weber looked through his documents. Lena, of course. A neighbor named Mr. Davis, and someone who claims to be your pharmacist, a Mr. Green. Mr. Davis was the neighbor across the street. He was an unpleasant man who had always had problems with me because my friends sometimes parked in front of his house. Mr. Green was indeed my pharmacist, but I couldn't understand what he could have against me. I need to talk to Mr. Green, I told Mr. Weber. Something's not right. We went to the pharmacy together that afternoon. Mr. Green was surprised and nervous to see us. Mrs. Richter, it's good to see you. How are you, Mr. Green? I was told you signed a statement saying I show erratic behavior with my medication. His face turned as red as a tomato. Mrs. Richter, your daughter-in-law came in a few weeks ago. She asked about your medications. She said she was worried because you were acting strangely. And what did you tell her? I explained to her that you only buy vitamins and an occasional aspirin, that you don't have any regular medical prescriptions. But she insisted that this was proof that you weren't taking adequate care of your health. Mr. Weber interjected. Mr. Green, did you sign a paper? She brought a document, he stammered. It said I was confirming that Mrs. Richter had irregular medication purchases. I thought it was for her health insurance or something. I didn't know it was for a lawsuit. My own pharmacist had been tricked into signing something he didn't fully understand. Lena's manipulation knew no bounds. Mr. Green, I said, I need you to write a statement explaining exactly what happened. I need you to clarify that I have no problems with my medications. Of course, Mrs. Richter. I am terribly sorry for this misunderstanding. After the pharmacy, we proceeded to see Mr. Davis. As we knocked on his door, he began to show hostility toward us. What do you want? Mr. Weber told Mr. Davis that he learned that Mr. Davis signed a statement describing his client's behavior. That's true, I did do that. That woman is crazy. She hasn't been acting herself for weeks. Was it the way I looked or was it my gesture? She installed cameras as if she lived in a war zone. She always had strangers to stay, and she always shouted at her family in the street. I realized then what had happened. Mr. Davis had misunderstood everything that was said. The cameras were installed for my protection. The strangers were my new friends. Everyone might think I was yelling, but I was defending my house from invasion by Max and Lena. Do you know why I installed those cameras, Mr. Davis? I asked, trying to keep my cool. No, and I don't care. I want to shield myself from my son and daughter-in-law. They entered my house without my consent and threatened me. He answered savagely. Only a crazy person would say that. There was no way to reason with him. Lena and Max twisted his statement, based on a very superficial observation. Mr. Weber and I conferred that night to plan the defense for the trial. Renata, we must have our psychiatric evaluation as well. I have a colleague, Dr. Moore, who assesses capacity. She can officially state that you are completely sound. What if that judge was bribed by Max and Lena? I asked in fear. What if all of this is irrelevant because they have already decided I am incompetent? Renata, the legal system is not really sound, but it isn't awful either. They have a good document that shows you are sane. They have a bad document that shows they are getting money to fight this. The following day I went to see Dr. Moore. She was a woman in her 50s with kind but astute eyes. The doctor will ask you various questions and administer mental tests. He wants to help you, and if sometimes thinking is hard, that is no problem. For 2 hours she asked me about my memory, reasoning, finances, and emotions. The person requested me to perform mental tests and solve math and logic problems. At the end she said, Mrs. Richter, your results are above average for your age. And you're not only mentally competent, but your cognitive function is just excellent. Why do you think my family is doing this, Doc? According to what you've told me and examined in the documents, she gently said, this seems to be a classic case of elder financial exploitation. It is more common than one may think. When I left the consultation, I felt good but also sad. I was relieved to have my mental health confirmed professionally. However, this also confirmed that the lawsuit was real and confirmed that the fight ahead was needed. That afternoon, Eleanor called an emergency meeting of our friends from the garden club. When I shared the lawsuit for incompetence, everyone showed indignation. "Renata," said Maria, "we will all testify for you. For weeks you have been with us and everyone can see you are well." "Better than great," Cynthia added. "I know many women who are 40 years old. You are stronger and clearer than they are." Alfreda, an 80-year-old woman, took hold of my hands one day. "Don't you worry, Renata. What your kids are doing is nothing new. For centuries, greedy children have tried to have their parents declared insane to get their money. But you have something many of these victims didn't have. You have documentation, you have legal support, and you have friends who can testify on your behalf." Her words gave me a surge of hope. I was not alone in this fight. I was accompanied by strong women who witnessed my transformations firsthand. "What do you think is the saddest thing out of all of this?" I asked. "You see, Max and Lena are happy to destroy any future possibility of a reconciliation for money. Even if I were to agree to forgive everything until now, there's no coming back from this." "Guess that's a good thing," Cynthia said. "Now that you know exactly who they are, you can start to act accordingly." For the first time, I actually cried that night since this nightmare started. I cried not out of sadness for myself but out of grief. I said a final goodbye to the son I thought I had. I said goodbye to the dream of a loving, close-knit family. I have had my fill of the illusion that unconditional love means reciprocation. But as the tears subsided, something new emerged within me. An iron determination. I would not let them strip me of my money. More importantly, though, I would not allow them to take away my dignity and my freedom. The war had officially begun, but I was ready to fight. 3 weeks later, the day of the trial arrived. I woke up early. I put on my best black suit. I glanced in the mirror, no longer seeing a victim but someone who was going to fight back. Today was not just about my mental capacity. It was about my dignity as a person. It was about my right to live free from abuse. It was about my value beyond my bank account. Mr. Weber arrived at my house at 7 a.m. for a final run-through of our planned approach. "Renata, remember that it's on them to prove you're incompetent. It's not on us to prove that you aren't. What happens if the judge already has biases?" "He's a fair judge, I'm told," he said. "I've followed his cases. He doesn't just give children to families. He protects the rights of the elderly." We arrived at the courthouse at 9 o'clock. In the hallway I saw them. Max was wearing a new suit which he likely bought for the event. Lena wore all black as if attending a funeral. Maybe it was the funeral of our family relationship. When our eyes met, Max quickly looked away. But Lena held my gaze. Her eyes were cold. To her, this was just a transaction, nothing more. Their lawyer was an old, sophisticated man with confidence in his ability to win similar cases. It was very clear what his approach to the trial was. He would have me out to be a confused older woman, manipulated by outsiders against my loving family. "Your Honor," he said, "Mrs. Renata Richter has demonstrated a noticeable decline in mental health in recent months. She has ceased to provide financial assistance to her family, without any justifiable reason. She has installed a panic button for fear of an imminent threat, and she has distanced herself from her family members, as neighbors and lawyers blatantly manipulate her by taking advantage of her state of mind." Every word was a lie. The words that were chosen make my self-empowerment sound like insanity, and my freedom sound like external interference. Then they called their witnesses. Lena was the first to testify. Her performance was worthy of an Oscar. "While I was in treatment, I received a visit from my mother. She cried as she described how I had changed entirely, how I had become hostile and paranoid, how I had isolated myself from the family that loved me. "Your Honor," she said, voice trembling, "Renata has always been like a second mom to me. It's been devastating to see her mental decline. We just want to help her get the care she needs." Lies. All of it. Lies wrapped in convincing tears. Mr. Weber's cross-examination of Lena revealed the shortcomings in her story. He asked the witness, Mrs. Schuster, whether she had called his client without asking for money. Lena stammered. "We had all kinds of conversations. When will I know the date?" "I cannot recall the exact dates." Mr. Weber asked whether the couple had married her husband and had not invited his client. "It was a very small ceremony," she said defensively. "Did your client really ask about your wedding and received a 'only special people are invited' response from you?" Lena's face turned red. Those words were quoted out of context. Mr. Weber calmly asked what the proper context would be for telling your mother-in-law that she is not special. Lena could not answer. Max was next. Watching him on the witness stand, promising to tell the truth while preparing to lie about my mental health, was one of the most painful moments of my life. This was the boy I had raised alone, the one to whom I had dedicated my entire life. My mom has always been very generous with us, he delivered with false theatricality. She has been going off the rails lately. She has become irrational. We think people are turning her into a flimsy pawn. Max's mask completely fell off when Mr. Weber cross-examined him. Mr. Richter, how many funds did you receive from your mother in the last 3 years? I don't know the exact amount. Does $33,400 sound acceptable? Maybe. She's always been generous. How many times have you gone to your mother without asking her for money? The silence in the courtroom was deafening. Mr. Weber continued his questioning. Did you and your spouse break into my client's home without permission? Did you check her documents? Max said, we were worried about her. Did you, in fact, bring a lawyer to bear on her to sign a power of attorney? We wanted to help her control the money. At 35, do you need your 71-year-old mother to help pay your rent? Max could not answer with dignity. He just stared at the floor. Mr. Davis, my neighbor, has testified about my so-called erratic behaviors. But when Mr. Weber asked him for particulars, Mr. Davis said he had never spoken to me. He admitted that all of his information was largely superficial. According to the hired psychiatrist Dr. Lehman, my refusal to submit to a psychiatric evaluation demonstrated that I was mentally declining. However, Mr. Weber provided the complete paperwork from our assessment with Dr. Moore. Her report completely refuted his conclusions. Then it was our turn. My pharmacist, Mr. Green, was the first to call Mr. Weber. He told the court that Lena misled him into writing a statement in her favor. Next, Dr. Moore testified. She explained the results of my cognitive tests, which showed my mental state was excellent. My bank manager, Mr. Klein, testified to my money skills. He stated that the choices I made to cancel the automatic transfers were entirely rational and were processed appropriately. Next, the Garden Club friends and Eleanor gave their evidence. People praised me for clarity, vibrant energy, and maintaining healthy social relations after the retreat. The painting presented a woman advancing rather than retreating, flourishing rather than declining. Finally, it was my turn. I stood up with a dignity I didn't know I possessed. As I walked to the witness stand, I felt the weight of 71 years. I discovered a great deal through suffering, and I learned strength through trouble. Mr. Weber helped me with my testimony. He let me tell my whole story. The $33,000 spent in 3 years. The humiliation of being excluded from the wedding. The constant emotional manipulation. The violation of my privacy. The legal threats. Mr. Weber asked Mrs. Richter on a more serious note why she had stopped financially supporting her son and daughter. I looked at the judge, then at Max and Lena. I said clearly and loudly because I finally understood what I was getting from them was not love. It was a business deal masquerading as a relationship favor to the family. My money was taken in, but I, as a person, was not. Do you regret your decision? I regret not making it long before the time taken to make it. During cross-examination, Max's lawyer tried to make me seem confused. He asked complicated questions trying to trip me up, but I answered everyone with clarity and precision. When he hinted that my new friends had controlled me, I told him I was having relationships for the first time where I was not interested in them financially, and neither were they. Max's lawyer claimed that outside forces had manipulated me in his closing argument. He painted a loving family trying to save their confused mother. Mr. Weber's rebuttal was devastating. Your Honor, what you are seeing is not an incompetent old woman. Rather, it is a woman who has finally found the strength to free herself from years of financial and emotional abuse. The plaintiffs have provided no real medical evidence of her mental incompetence. What they have presented is their frustration. Frustration because their source of income has decided to exercise her legal and moral right to protect her own resources. Judge Miller retired to deliberate. The 2 hours he was gone felt like 2 years. When he returned, his expression was serious but clear. After reviewing all of the evidence submitted, he began, "It is clear to this court that Mrs. Renata Richter is in complete control of her faculties. As numerous experts confirmed, she is totally sane. Her decision to sacrifice her children is a painful but rational one." My heart began to beat faster. I gripped the edge of my seat. The judge stated further that the evidence shows that this litigation is driven more by self-interest than by any genuine interest for Mrs. Richter. Thus, the request for guardianship is denied in its entirety. I had won. I not only won the lawsuit but also received a settlement. I had won back my freedom. I had won back my dignity. I was sure that I had earned back the right to live free from the abuse of those who claimed to love someone, As we exited the courthouse, I saw Max and Lena both angry, speaking to their lawyer. Lena glared at me with contempt before turning on her heels and leaving me there. Max looked at me one last time. For a brief moment, I noticed something in his eyes that seemed like regret, but it was already too late. Eleanor held a party at my house tonight with all our friends. We toasted to justice. We toasted to freedom. We made a toast to the strong women who lift each other. Alfreda told me, "Renata, today you did not win a trial, you won back your life." He was right. I felt like the future belonged to me for the first time in years. I could travel. I could love. I could create. I could live without fear, sadness, and being manipulated. 3 months later, I sold my house. I moved to a beautiful apartment near the city center. I gave half of the donation to the groups that shield the old from family abuse. From then on, I started living the life I have always wished for. I traveled through Europe. I took art classes. I joined volunteer groups. I never heard from Max and Lena again. People are saying that they had to move into a smaller apartment, that Lena had found a job for the first time in years. Maybe these wretches will learn that lesson from adversity as my generosity never could, the lesson of honest work and independence. There are times when I gaze at the stars from my new balcony at night and I think about the woman I was a year back. This woman felt fearfully manipulated, and that she had to earn a man's love. That woman is dead. In her place, someone new has been born. True love cannot be bought, and neither can freedom, ever too expensive for someone who understands this simple truth. My name is Renata. I am 72 years old. I have finally learned that the person I need to love and protect most is me.